Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're doing well. Today we will be estimating products with decimals, and this is the lesson we did in class in case you missed it or you want to review it. So in our Do Now, we wanted to estimate each of the products. So let's go through each one of these. I know the multiplication really means of, right? So we're taking half of 16, and half of 16 would be 8. All right, for our next one, 1/10 of 50. Well, if I split 50 up into 10 equal groups, how much would go into each group? 5. Same thing over here, I'm thinking taking 1/4 of 40. If I split 40 up into 4 equal groups, how much will go into each group? 10 will go into each group. All right, the next part, I wanted to write down the decimal form of each of those fractions up on the top. So for the first problem, it was a half, and a half is the same thing as 5/10, and we can write that in decimal form as 0.5. For the second one, 1/10, right, is the same thing as 0.1. And 1/4, I'm going to have to make into 100 instead of 10 because 4 doesn't go into 10. So that would be 25 hundredths, which is the same as 0.25. All right, so again, if we're estimating, I know that I'm thinking of it in the same terms as our fractions above, right? So 0.5 is the same as a half. I'd still have the same estimate. Or I know 5 times 16 is 80, and I have one decimal point there. It's going to be pretty close. If I move that decimal point over, it's going to be 8. All right. Then we have 50. If you remember multiplying by tens, hundreds, thousands, or dividing by tens, hundred, thousands, it's similar even though this is 0.1, 1/10 is 1/10 of 1. We're going to make our number smaller by one decimal point to make it 5. All right, and over here, I'm thinking about quarters. If I have 40 quarters, how much money will I have? Well, I know 4 groups or 4 quarters gives us $1, and I'd have 10 groups of those 4, so that would be $10, so I can estimate it to 10. All right, we're going to move on to actually multiplying with decimals, and we'll talk about the rule here and how that works. All right, so for our first question, this 1 2/10 times a half, because that 5/10 is the same as a half, I'm going to take half of 1 2/10. And if I think about it in terms of money, that's $1.20. If I take half of $1.20, I'm going to get 60 cents or 0.6. So that's what I should expect our product to be. So let's go through and multiply and see what the rule would be here. 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. And we said our decimal point has to be just before the 6. Why does that happen? Because I'm going to count the factors, the decimal place values in the factors. There's 1 in 1 2/10, and there's 1 in 5/10. That means we need 2 in our product. So we shifted it over 2 places. Let's go on to the second one. Again, this is a half, right? And if we take half of 3 cents, we're going to get 1.5 cents. Or if I take half of 30, we could think about it a different way, half of 30 thousandths, we're going to end up with 15 thousandths. So let's go ahead and multiply and see where we would place that decimal point. So I have 5 times 3, which is 15, carry the 1. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. There are 2 decimal place values in 300ths. There's 1 in the 5/10. That means we need 3 altogether in the product. So we're going to move our decimal point over 3 places and put it right here. And I'm going to fill that empty spot with a 0. So we end up with 0.015 or 15 thousandths. All right, on to the next one. I'm going to estimate that if I have, well, I'm going to think about it again in terms of money. So let's say we have $6.08 and 4 people have the same amount. So we're going to multiply that by 4. Well, I know 4 times 6 would give us $24. And if those 4 people each had 8 cents, they'd have 32 cents when we put it all together. So now let's go ahead and multiply and talk about the rules. So I have 4 times 8, which is 2, carry the 3. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3, and 4 times 6 is 24. So our digits are the same as what we were estimating. I'm going to count the place value, decimal place values in the factors. There's 2 in 6 and 800ths. That means we need 2 in the 2,432. I'm going to bump it over twice. It's going to go between the 4 and the 3. That's 24 and 32 hundredths. All right, this last one is tricky. It's really hard to estimate because these numbers are so small. So we're just going to go ahead and multiply it here. 9 times 8 is 72. And then we're going to have to count the decimal place values in each of these. So I'm going to zoom in here so we can count it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 decimal place values in that top number, and 1, 2, 3 in the bottom one. So that means we need 8 altogether. I'm going to scoop it over here. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm almost running out of space here. My decimal point is going to go here, and I need to add some zeros into those empty spaces. So how many zeros do we have? We have 6 zeros. Just going to rewrite it so it's clear without those scoops. 6 zeros, and then the 72. I'm going to put a 0 out front to show there are no whole numbers. All right, we are on to the next 2 questions, or last question here. We want to put the decimal point in the correct spot, and we're going to use estimation to solve it. So estimation means I want to round my numbers before I do the multiplying. So I'm going to round this number 7 and 5,879 hundred thousandths to just 7. We're going to drop the decimals to it. And we're going to round the 12 and 87,194 hundred thousandths up to 13. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply those two. So 7 times 13 gives us 91. So I know our answer has to be close to 91. Well, where would an appropriate spot be to put the decimal point in this number here? It would have to be between the 0 and the 8. And I'm just going to write it in here. If I put it between the 0 and 8, that makes this 90.86, and that is really close to the 91. So that's the appropriate spot for it. Would not be appropriate to be just after the 9, right? 9.08 ... is nowhere close to 91. If I put it even before that, 908 thousandths is nowhere close to 91. It's not appropriate. So we want to see, where does putting that decimal point make sense, where it's close to our estimate. All right, if you have any questions, join me in the call for tomorrow and we will talk about it. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.